You're about to enjoy a Cloudcast original. Local stories, local storytellers, local brands.
Have you ever felt that you as a woman may not appear to measure up when you see incredible women in strong roles? You may be surprised when hearing from women in these positions and how we all share many of the same challenges. Thank you for joining us for the SheEO Lead-In podcast with Rebecca Jones as we share the journeys of women.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Jones, your host of SheEO. We are on an exploration together to discover more about the personal journeys of incredible women in both career and life. We all have paths to share that sometimes take incredible turns, deep resilience, and courage to navigate. My hopes are that the challenges shared here encourage women to take leaps of faith and growth when a journey feels too difficult or unachievable. There is great strength deep within each one of us. These stories are meant to share the ways strong women have taken their dreams to strive and thrive to new heights despite their sometimes rocky paths and found a way to lead in. Today we are with Ruth-Ann Thorn, the chairwoman of the Rincon Economic Development Corporation, founder of Native Beauty, and founder of EC Gallery. How are you today, Ruth-Ann?
I'm wonderful. It's
so excited to have you here. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Well, I do a lot. And sometimes I wake up in the morning and I just think, my gosh, how did you come to this place where I'm wearing so many hats? I mean, I've always been a very, an entrepreneur at heart, and I've had a lot of different businesses, but I am really, I've really spread my tentacles out to do quite a bit more than I ever really thought I would be capable of. And it's been a really good challenge, trying a lot of things. So where do you want me to start?
I want you to start with, what does your day look like? And I'm sure it's pretty hectic.
Well, it's interesting because I moved back to the Indian reservation. My family is from the Rincon Band of Luiseño Indians. And for those of you who are not from San Diego, it's located northeast San Diego, right at the base of Mount Palomar. And so we've just got this incredible view of the mountains, Palomar Mountain, all of the mountains, the Palma Valley. It's just an incredible place. And I think, I've gone back because I really felt like after creating businesses that it was my time to serve back on the reservation and serve my people. So my day is very diverse. I would say that a good majority of my time is now spent on the reservation, working with the tribe on economic development. And what that is we build businesses on and off the reservation to bring in other economic sources for really to kind of subsidize the casino, if you will, because that's definitely our heavy lifter. But we want to have other avenues of growth and to encourage that next generation to pick up the baton and to be able to jump into business if they so choose. So that's where most of my day is spent. I also have a gallery in Solana Beach, California. So I downsized about 5 years ago. I had 7 galleries at one time, and that was quite an operation with 130 employees. And I did that for about 22 years. I had those galleries consecutively, everywhere from San Diego, Laguna Beach, Beverly Hills, Las Vegas, at the Forum Shops at Caesars, and then for a short time in Breckenridge, Colorado. So it was a big enterprise and lots of moving parts. And then I just really felt the need to downsize and get back to more of a community sense of a gallery. All those galleries were in high profile commercial spaces. Is a very different energy and more about business than about art, I would say, maybe about both. And I thought Solana Beach is such a cool community. I moved back there 3 years ago. So I have one gallery. And then I started a new business called Native Beauty, utilizing plant life from the reservation. Primarily acorn, which is one of the things we utilized. And then I also film. I do documentary filmmaking, and I have a series called Art of the City, which shows on a network called First Nations Experience, which is devoted to Native content. And I'm starting to film in April a new series called This is Indian Country, where I travel across the country interviewing creatives from different reservations. So think kind of Anthony Bourdain meets Indian Country. And so that's what I've got going on.
No, I think you have something else. Didn't you start something in the brewing industry?
Well, that's part of Redco. So that's part of the Rincon Economic Development Corporation. And that has been such a wonderful journey for us as tribal people. So we really felt like looking at the different businesses we could grow. San Diego is known for craft brewery. And for those of you who don't know, San Diego really had four major tribes that for 14,000 years documented this has been our tribal land. And we felt like, you know what, as Native people, one of the biggest industries here in San Diego is craft brew. We should really make a name for ourselves in that space. So we, embarked upon that venture. We really didn't know what we were doing, and we've learned a lot on the way, but we just opened our very first off-reservation business in Ocean Beach on Newport Avenue called Rincon Reservation Road Brewery. And it proudly has our name on it. We tell our story as tribal people through the beers. So all of the beers are named after either Luiseño names or things that are dear to our hearts, like Res Dog beer. And that just opened. It was a little bit of a hiccup trying to get it there, but we're open now and super excited about that.
Well, to say that you are busy is probably quite the understatement. I feel like you do all these different things. Super exciting. And I want to hear a little bit about your childhood. If you could share a little fun story that people might not know about you, that would be a great start to know you more as a person.
No, I appreciate that. Well, I've got a kind of an unconventional story. I mean, my parents met in San Francisco in the 60s. And my mother is half Chinese, half Dutch from immigrant parents. So, interracial marriage, which was really frowned upon in the 60s. And so my grandparents moved to San Francisco where it was a little bit more liberal. And so their children could have a little bit better environment for being, interracial children. And then my father, who is from Rincon Indian Reservation, he was on a cultural exchange with the Bureau of Indian Affairs in the 60s, where they were taking kids off the reservation and bringing them into urban cities so that they could get a little bit different take on the world. And so they met in San Francisco, fell in love. They were both civil rights activists. So my mother was a women's rights activist artist in the 60s, and my dad was an activist for Native American rights. A matter of fact, we just went back on a side note. We just celebrated the 50-year celebration of the occupation of Alcatraz, where my father was one of the first Native Americans on the island there. So they had, I come from a spicy meatball family. I mean, they were both very spicy. And then that marriage, what didn't last super long because they were kids. And then my dad went back to the reservation. My mom lived there for a while and they split up. And then my mother remarried. And so it was a tough childhood because I really didn't have that foundation of my Native culture. And as a Native person, even though I'm Asian and I have, white Dutch blood, I think, my pulling has always been to the Indian reservation because there's such a connection with this land. I think there's something to be said about the DNA that runs through your body when you connect with the land under your feet. There's memory there. And so that was a kind of a tough time. And then my parents on both sides kind of went through a rough patch. And long story short, I ended up at 14 years old on my own, homeless. And so I completed the 9th grade and then I went through, I always say my early years is where I learned about business. So I actually became a drug runner from Tijuana when I was 15 years old. I was bringing cocaine across the border because what does a young girl do to try to make a living? And that was a very interesting patch. Luckily, it didn't last very long. It was probably from about 14 to 17. And there was a lot of trauma involved in that culture. And I won't go into the gory details, but it was a very traumatic time. And then at around 18, I decided, well, I had a fake ID by then, and I started cocktail waitressing. And at that point, I went back to school. And amazingly enough, I passed the GED, which is a shocker. And then it was just kind of what things started to turn for me. I went to Palomar College for a while, took some classes, things that I just really loved, and then got married young and moved to Hawaii and started working in an art gallery. And my mother, being an artist and having grown up around the arts, it was just like, fish to water. And I just decided after working in that gallery for probably about maybe 2 weeks that I had found my calling and that I wanted to be an art dealer. So fortunately, that put me on the right path. And, 30 years later, I'm still an art dealer. So that gives you, I like to give that background. It was a long time before I could actually tell that story because I had a lot of shame and a lot of fear about judgment. But as I've gotten older, I realized that that is my story to inspire young people, young women particularly, that whether they have a college education, which I highly recommend, or not, if there's a will, there's a way, and you can create whatever it is that you put your mind to, as long as you're willing to do the work. And so that's my little background story.
Wow. Well, all I can say is that so proud of you. You have been through a lot. You've really overcome so many things. And I think that is important to share because it creates the truth, and that is the authentic part of you of being transparent and sharing things, because there are a lot of women that do, I think more women than men, that live in shame that their past and their childhood and their brokenness somehow defines who they are in their future, which it doesn't. I actually have not the same as yours, but a lot of things in my childhood and my early adulthood that I look back and I go, wow, I can't even believe I made it through all of that, and here I am. And I've actually moved forward, and I am who I am. And that I think all of those actually bring also to your credibility too. Of, hey, you know what, you too can overcome things, and you can create something beautiful from all of that, because it's true, you can. So thinking about all that you've just shared. What is one word that you think that describes you the best?
Oh, well, it's a Luiseño word. And it is the word that we use for beauty. And the word is pronounced, it's spelled Yayawhish, Yahwehwish. And what it means is it means beauty, but it's not necessarily beauty the way that we would translate it. Just kind of from first gloss as being an external beauty. Yahwehwish, we have a saying in Indian country, and it's walk in beauty. And a lot of different native cultures have that saying within their native tongue. And what it really means is to walk in a way that you recognize the temporal existence of this space that we're on. Some people call it a plane or the planet or our lifetime. And when we walk in beauty, we recognize that every day is a gift, and everything that we need for our lives to prosper has been provided for us. So we look at the plants and the sky and the sun, and we breathe the air, and we can count on those things as using the elements to sustain our lives. And so when we walk in beauty, it means to recognize those things. So we are not living in fear. We are living knowing everything is provided, therefore we can accomplish anything we want. And also to have the idea that because it's a temporal existence, we don't hang on too tightly to things. So if we are very successful, that's wonderful, but that's not really what defines us, because we all know there's an expiration date here. And when we leave this plane, we don't take anything with us. So I would say Yahwehwish. That's what describes me, is the ability to wake up every day and say, okay, today I'm going to walk in beauty.
Well, I have to tell you, that is beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us. And, you know, a lot of people don't really think that deeply. They think about, okay, one word, and it's just what I'm feeling today. I think yours is truly a lifelong journey of where you are today and all of the things that have been provided to you, back to what you were saying, all of this time to bring you to where you are today. Beauty. I love that. So thinking about your career and thinking about, what success looks like, what does that look like to you, and what does failure look like to you?
Oh, I love those topics. Those are so good. Those are juicy ones. Well, success to me looks like a tree. I mean, to me, when I'm successful, it means that I'm fruitful, and the idea is that fruit is there for other people to be able to get sustenance from. So if I'm building a business, I'm building that business and I want it to be successful because it's going to provide jobs for other people. It's going to give me the ability to create, to have blessings on the other people around me. I mean, each one of us only needs so much. And it doesn't mean that I'm not materialistic, because I like my nice clothes, my nice car, my nice house. But I think there's also, and there's no judgment for however anybody wants to live. But for me personally, I think, I like nice things, but there's a limit. And if you have, nice pair of shoes, how much nicer of a pair of shoes are you going to get for 10 times as much? I don't know, maybe. But to me, it's more about utilizing your abilities to create something so that it goes beyond you. It goes to all other aspects. I mean, we could just list them. It could go on and on. So that's, to me, what success is creating something. It doesn't have to be big. Whatever it is, it shouldn't just be for me and my enjoyment. It should bless other people. And then I would say, for me, failure is when I get so afraid I'm paralyzed, and I've allowed negative thoughts and fears that are not real to bind me up and keep me from being able to bring forth everything that I'm supposed to do. So it could just be like, fear of judgment of other people, or fear that I've taken on too much and I'm not capable. I think the best place anybody can be when they're feeling that is they do it anyway. That's what I always say. Sometimes if I'm going to go into a situation, I feel like I'm going to literally throw up. I'm like, all right, Ruth-Ann, this is the time you really bit off more than you can chew. I mean, you really, really did. And I'll start getting freaked out. But in the middle of that, I'll just say, well, you know what? If I throw up, I throw up. I'm going to do it anyway. And I think that's where the magic is.
It is. And that's where the greater success actually comes. If you're not ever reaching forward, you're never moving forward, you're never trying things, how can you actually find success? You can't if you're just staying still and not moving forward. Totally agree about that. So, back to, careers and all of that, balancing work and personal life is really tough. Tell me what that might look like to you, or what does that look like to you? Because again, you are very productive. You have a lot going on. How do you do all of that?
It is a challenge within my own mindset. And I guess, I have a 15-year-old daughter, and so she keeps me grounded because I definitely need to prioritize time with her. That can be really a challenge. But I also think I've learned to redefine balance in the sense that, we have this image of, okay, we're working, we have these projects, we're making money, and then we should, balance that with time reading a book or recreating and some. And I think that's great. But for some people who are a little maniacal like myself, my enjoyment is creating something new. So sometimes I used to feel bad about that, like, oh my gosh, on my downtime, I'm thinking about creating another business. Well, that's just me. That's what I do, and I enjoy it. So now I don't really make excuses for that, and I've taken the label of workaholic off of my mind, because I think it's a negative connotation to someone who's just a creator. But I do try to, what's very important to me is making sure that I eat well. So I really try to eat healthy and clean. And I also try to work out maybe 4 days a week. I'd love to do 5, but that's kind of my treat, is when I get in my little home gym to just, step away and get an exercise in. And then having time, to in Native culture, we smudge, we use the sage. I like to do that at least once a month, to just have maybe even half an hour or an hour to walk the land that I'm on, and just get back in touch with my spirit. So I don't know. I think everybody has to define balance differently. It's definitely something that, I don't think you master that. You just kind of have to be intuitive. And then when I start to really feel like I'm overdoing it, my body tells me. It will just say, yeah, I don't think so. And then
Yeah.
I'll get a little injury or something. So anyway, yeah.
Well, I think balance also looks different at different times too for each one of us. It's really a season. Sometimes you're far more work centric, and then sometimes you really, like your body said, your body says, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. And I find that if I don't get enough exercise, I really lack that clarity that I need, because I have to think a lot too, and I'm always in my mind going, okay, how am I going to overcome this? How am I going to overcome that? And it's really hard to do that if you're not of clear mind. And I think the exercise, and back to what you say, I also make eating right a priority as well. And I can tell when I'm super busy and I start eating just kind of on the go, I start to have issues. I just start to have issues.
Absolutely.
And yeah. So tell me, being a Native American is very different than my culture. Or, I mean, we all fit together, of course. But what has been more of the most significant barrier in your career that you have found in that culture? And is it an issue? And then also when you're leading men?
Oh boy, yeah, that's a lot. I'd say, being a Native woman, that has been difficult, just within Indian country, because the Native culture, way back in the day, and I'm only talking about less than 200 years ago, was very matriarchal. So the men were hunter gatherers, and they would go out. Sometimes they didn't come back. So the women really were the ones in control of the government, and they were the medicine women, not necessarily medicine men. And they were the nurturers and the keeper of the home, and they controlled most everything. And then, when the colonies came in, there was a very Christian bent, and the man was the ruler of everything. And so there's been a lot of I think shifts that are happening in Indian country to go back to that balance, because I am really of the belief that male, female, or non-specific, I think we're all human beings with things to offer. But my personal experience has been that it has been a challenge to get respect in business as a woman. I think it's getting better as time goes on. And I think, when I was younger, it was definitely more difficult. But I think it is getting better. As far as prejudice, as a Native person, fortunately, haven't experienced a lot of that. I think California is a real melting pot, but I know other places I travel within the tribes, there is a lot more resentment towards Native people. And, a lot of people look down and, it's kind of like there's a stigma that you're a drunken, dumb Indian. Because a lot of that was portrayed in Hollywood. A lot of the movies didn't really cast Native people in the best light. But it's starting to shift. I mean, when you think about this continent had 100 million Native people on this northern continent, we're the smallest minority group here. And this was our land for, I think they said now 23,000 years documented. So it's a bigger topic, but personally, I try not to think about the inequalities because I think it makes me feel negative in a situation. So I try to just power through it, but I think it's there.
Yeah, yeah. And so, thinking about you walk into a room of young women, what are some lessons that you'd like to share with them that you've learned in life that you would tell them to please, think about this and how can they apply these lessons to their lives?
Oh, what I tell my daughter is that everybody is afraid. So don't think that if you're afraid, that means that something's wrong with you. We are, as human beings, we are, our minds are there to protect us from pushing too far. And so there's always a battle within the mind because the more you want to do, the more your mind is going to operate to protect you and say, oh, no, you shouldn't do that. Definitely don't do that. That's super scary. So I'd say to young women, if you're afraid, do it anyway, because the more you do it anyway, the less afraid you'll get. And the more you take on, the more you push yourself, you'll feel scared every single time. And then it gets better. So don't allow the voice in your head to control and dictate who you are. So I've really taught my daughter to have a conversation between her and her. I always say I have conversations between me and me every day. So there's the one side of me that's like, oh, yeah, I want to go conquer the world. And there's the other side that says, oh, my gosh, why would you do that? Who does that? And there's that conversation. And so get used to it.
Well, think back when you were a young woman and you went to and you traveled to Hawaii and you were there and you went to that first gallery. That was when I think you shifted to become who you actually were supposed to be. If you had not actually done that, think of how different your life would have been.
Oh
and
my gosh.
it is. It's going outside of your comfort zone. I tell all young people that I speak to, you need to go outside your comfort zone. Don't do things that are dangerous, but do things that are very uncomfortable for you, because that's when the magic happens, back to what you were saying, because that's when you grow.
That's it. And then the other thing I would say is don't take it too seriously when the outcome that you were expecting maybe isn't exactly what you expected, or maybe you feel like you screwed it up, or you'd say it the way you wanted to, or whatever. Don't take it so seriously. It's just all in one day. And then you've got tomorrow again, and you've hopefully got the next day after that. So, I mean, I think life is not built on one platform, and you just keep going for it. And a lot of times I use the analogy of the seed in the ground. You plant the seed in the ground and you tend to it. You can't keep digging it up to look to see if it's growing. You just have to have faith it's going to grow, and you just keep, tending to it, and then it grows. And that's how our lives are. Like, we don't always see the success. Most of the time we don't even see it. Then we look back and we go, whoa, how did that happen? because we're too busy doing. And I think that's what we need to do is just keep doing the work. Don't worry about if it's good enough or whatever. I don't know if you've ever listened to this guy named Seth Godin, but he's on YouTube. He's one of my favorite mentors, and he has a little tiny book called The Practice. And I just love it because it's just about, whatever you want to do, you just start doing that. That's how I started filming. Oh, you want to be a documentary filmmaker? Start filming. That's the start. And then it becomes something the more you practice it. And that's the best way to live life.
Well, and sometimes today's failures are tomorrow's victories.
All the time.
It might not, the timing just might not be 100% right. But when you start trying things that may seem like a failure, they might not actually be a failure tomorrow or next week or next month or honestly 5 years down the road, right?
That's it. So that's what I tell young people. And then the other thing I'd say is get off social media. Do your posts if you're in business. Post it and walk away. Don't look at how many people like it or decide this or that. Just post it because that's what you're supposed to do and walk away. And don't surf everybody else's, because the reality is you start feeling like other people are living a better life than you and they're just posting. It's all propaganda. So, wrap your head around that right away and then, move on.
Seriously good advice. So what's next on your journey, Ruth-Ann? I want to know. I'm dying to know. I'm sure there's something up your sleeve.
Well, my next really big endeavor is I have this beautiful piece of property that's located about 3 minutes north of the casino at Rincon. That was my great-grandfather's property. I have so many amazing memories of being on his red tractor, and he was a citrus farmer, and he'd speak to me in Luiseño and tell me about all the trees. He knew them all by name. He planted them all. Well, that's my property now, and it's always been a place for creativity. And I am going to be building a rather large art center there in the next 2 years. So I will be inviting Indigenous artists from all over the country and eventually all over the world to come and create there. And then we'll probably do some exhibits. I'd love to bring children there to learn about past cultures that are still being preserved through the arts. So that's probably going to be, I wouldn't say my swan song, but it's definitely going to be where I'm going to, rest, meaning that's where I'm going to be. So if you want to find me, I'll be on that piece of land. It's a big project, but it's something that I really feel is important, is to preserve the history of the ancient cultures within the arts and for people to see them, because they're disappearing. And I feel like it's so important to preserve what we can.
I totally agree with that. A lot of people forget about history and then it gets rewritten and then it's erased forever. And so it is important to definitely spend some time and cultivate that to preserve it for the future, because again, it is so important so that we remember where we came from and how we got there.
That's it.
So yeah. Thank you so much, Ruth-Ann. I appreciate you so much.
It's my honor. And thank you for having this platform for women. And, I read up on you a little bit, and you're an incredible woman yourself. And what a great host to provide this for everyone. I mean, this is hopefully, and I know it already has, but hopefully this outreaches what you're doing to lots of young women, because that's the future right there.
It definitely is. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Now that was powerful. We hope you've been lifted and encouraged by today's inspiring voice. Always remember that life doesn't look exactly the same for each one of us. Never stop dreaming, striving, and thriving. In future episodes, we look forward to bringing you powerful stories from amazing women who learn how to lead in to challenges. Thank you for listening and being part of our community with SheEO host, Rebecca Jones.
You have been listening to a Cloudcast original. Local stories, local storytellers, local brands. Find more stories at cloudcast.us.